Hey everyone, Lazy Gardener here. It's July 24th, 2021. And we're going to do a potato harvest and storage video. And it's stopped watering these for some time now. It's been hot and dry for a few days and a rain's coming, so it's a perfect time to do the harvest. Now, I planted these potatoes on April 18th, 2021. They've been in the ground almost 100 days, so they're definitely ready. But let's look at some of the visual clues to show you how we can tell these potatoes are ready to go. Now, you can see the foliage is dying back. Some people recommend that you wait until they die completely. You can definitely do that. There probably is some more growth in these potatoes, but I want some potatoes, and I've got more potatoes, so there's no problem with harvesting these. These have been in the ground about 100 days, and there's, again, no reason to believe they're not ready. But if you look back there in the box behind it, those potatoes are about 2 weeks younger than these, and you can see the dramatic difference in the foliage over the last 2 weeks, really telling you that these potatoes are ready to go. The last clue we have here is, if you can kind of zoom in over here, you'll see there's a potato actually poking up through the pine needles, and it's actually, these are red, so it's actually turning green. That is not a good thing. You do not want potatoes exposed to the sun. That green, or in this case almost like a yellow tinge on this potato, is actually poisonous. You'll want to peel that off and eat it. It's not arsenic or anything like that, but it is not good for the human health, and you don't want to eat a potato like that. So it's another reason to want to get these out of the ground. Now, to harvest these, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just take out these PVC railings and that PVC watering system. Leave a comment below if you want to see more information and a separate video on those. After that, I'll take off the pine needle coating, which in a little bit I'll give you some tips and I'll explain to you why I did that. I'll then harvest the first plant or two by hand, and I usually like to remove about a bucket of soil, because after that, that'll leave some nice room. We'll break out this guy and we'll power through the rest. We'll do the rest of this harvest on a time lapse, but later on you may hear me refer to a groundhog, or a hound dog, excuse me. That's this guy, and now you'll know what I'm talking about. Put the rest onto a time lapse, and let's get this sucker harvested, and I'll come back at the end and show you what we got and show you what to do with them. Okay, so I bought organic seed potatoes off the internet. I think it was Gurney's. It's about 3.5 to 4 pounds of seed potatoes to plant these 32 plants. That's generally because I like to plant whole potatoes if I can. You can cut them, and if you cut them, you just want to leave 2 or 3 eyes, or even if you don't, you want 2 or 3 sprouts coming off of the potatoes, or eyes. If there are any more than that, you can just break them off. You don't want too many, otherwise you'll get too many small potatoes. But I like to plant the whole potatoes, but if you don't and you want to cut them, they tell you to let them cure for a couple of days to keep them from spoiling the ground. I've never done that. Instead, I do a trick that my Portuguese mother-in-law taught me, which is you dip the cut pieces in elemental sulfur. You really cut any exposed pieces in sulfur, and I've never had a single potato rot on me in the ground. Again, I planted these in mid-April. When I got the seed potatoes in March, I chitted them. Chitted them means you let them sprout before you put them in the ground, because it's too cold when they come anyway. You can just leave them out on a bright area, not too sunny, but where it gets light, and spread them out on a tray, and they will start to form sprouts. And those sprouts will hit the ground, allow your seed potatoes to hit the ground running when you plant them. Now, when I plant them, I'm going to tell you how I prepare the ground. First, I plant them at about 1 foot to 1 foot and 1 inch apart. I find that to be perfect spacing. That's how I got 32 in this box. How I prepare the ground is that I take about 1 1/4 to 1 1/2 cubic feet of compost, which I make myself, along with about the same amount of horse manure. I mix in almost 12 cups of bone meal and 8 cups of blood meal. I don't put any phosphorus or potash in there, but next year I'm going to experiment with that. But even without that, I got a great result. I mix all of that together. I then take half of that and I use that hound dog I showed you earlier in the video, and I literally mix it into the box. Most of my stuff is essentially no dig, but with the potatoes, I mix that in along with 2 cups or 3 cups, excuse me, of elemental sulfur. That'll help with the pH. I mix that all into the soil, and then I take the remaining amount and I put it on top. After I plant my potatoes, I then put a layer of chopped leaves on top, and then after that, I put down a nice thick layer of pine needles. Now the purpose of the pine needles is not only just as a mulching, it's to help control potato beetles. Potato beetles are the biggest pest that you can have with the potatoes, and ever since I started putting down pine needles, I have had so much less trouble with the potato beetles. Potato beetles, maybe I could do a separate video on how to control them, but if you do have them, you can just pick them off by hand. But essentially, that's how I plant them, and then I put my watering system on top, and you're good to go. You don't water them too often, but if it's dry for a while, you give them a nice good soak. They just want even watering, and you stop watering, I don't know, about 2 weeks or more before you're ready to harvest them. Once you start seeing that the crop starts dying, you want to stop watering. So that was insane. This is beats my wildest expectations of the harvest. This has really just been a phenomenal harvest this year. We had one single rotted potato, which was kind of gross, but the rest were all great. They were all real near the surface too, which is what you get, at least what you would expect you'd get with a kind of determinate potato. But let's get these guys weighed up and let's see how much we got from a single, I think it was about 4 pounds of potatoes that I planted. I hope you liked my tips and tricks, and I hope you liked this video. If you did and found it useful, don't forget to give a like and a subscribe. Before I show you the final reveal here, I put these all on the scales, just 1 or 2 more comments. If you'll see here, this is why you need to take care when you're harvesting. The skins are very, very thin, and if they get torn like that, this won't store. So this one will be going right into the kitchen. What I'm going to do with the rest of these is I'm going to stick them in that shed right over there for just about 24 hours. They are pretty dry, but you can see that there's a little bit of moisture left on the potatoes in the dirt, and we want that to dry up before we put them in storage. After that, they'll go into my basement, into a dark closet that we've made. And I also want to give a great shout out to my son who helped me do the filming and do the harvesting. Made it go a lot faster. It did not take very long at all. So what did we get with about 4 pounds of potatoes in a 4.5 foot by 8 foot box? Well, we weighed these containers. We put them all on the scale. The containers themselves weighed about 7 pounds. Why don't we bring in the camera and see what we got? We got 61 pounds here, minus the containers, and that is 54 pounds of potatoes. That is a great harvest in just under 100 days. And let me just say, good luck and good gardening. All right, what's the reveal? What did I get from about 4 pounds of potatoes? These, we weighed the containers, and they came in at about 7 to 7.5 pounds. And we have about 61.5 pounds. That's 61 pounds. So minus the containers is 64 pounds of potatoes.
No.
No.
You added 3.
All right, hit stop. We'll refilm the whole thing.